All right, so now that I've set up for this fight in the Outer Goblin camp, I'm just going to go ahead and take out the Outer Goblin camp for experience. You can do this without causing any anger with the goblins inside the temple. There's some dialogue which kind of explains this. They just think the noise is the goblins outside partying, so they tend to ignore it. You're going to want to kill these goblins anyway, unless you're going to choose the evil path and raid the Druid Grove. So I generally do this right away. So if you choose to attack them like I have from the main entrance to the temple, this main group of goblins is all you will have to fight. The little groups up top and off to the side will not aggro. And at some point, the bugbear Bowsinger, or however you say his name, he will join the fight. If you do the barrels just right, which I didn't exactly succeed here on this honor mode run, but if you position them right and you wait for the goblins to move in the correct way, you can clear out most of them with the exploding barrels right off the bat. The other thing that I like to do here is the suspicious poison that I picked up in the apothecary shop. I will use that on the ogre, on Guard Gurgen. He can be a bit of a pain to get rid of, so the suspicious poison will help a lot with that. I am going to struggle with Guard Gurgen regardless. The other one that I'm going to struggle with is Bowsinger himself. He's going to do quite a lot of damage to me. Bugbears are dangerous in Baldur's Gate 3, just as they are in D&D. You can see the Warlock off to the side there. His pathing is a little confused, so he's doing silly things and not actually joining the fight like he should. That's kind of just a video game thing. I mean, obviously, a fight like this set up in tabletop D&D, that wouldn't happen. There are some healers out on the field. If you want to take those out first, it's probably a good idea, but they do not resurrect their allies. So some of these goblins have very low health, so you can just take them out, and you don't really have to worry about them getting healed. All in all, this is a relatively time-consuming fight, just because you have to wait so many turns before you get to do whatever it is you're going to do. So you can expect this will take a good 10 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how the fight plays out. You can see that Baevielle has taken quite a lot of damage. She took a lot of shots from the archers, so getting them off the field will help a lot. But aside from that, I don't know that there's a lot of commentary on the fight itself. It's a pretty straightforward fight. You're just going to pick your most dangerous targets, and you're going to do what you can to get them off the field. The way that the NPCs are programmed is not always optimized for maximum possibility of damage, I guess. Like Bowsinger could have jumped toward me and gotten rid of the disadvantage on his throw, but he didn't do that. So, because of the way that they've done the programming on these NPCs, it is actually worthwhile to just play the game like you would play tabletop D&D. It does a pretty good job of emulating that. In the last video, I was talking about the concept of finishing the game quickly, or at least, within the in-game world. And the way to accomplish that being to use characters that don't need to take a long rest, or that you can get away with not taking a long rest. And I, in preparation for trying that out, compiled a little list of the different classes that I thought were most conducive, that could do things the quickest. And so I just kind of ranked them by their rest dependence. So I just went alphabetically. So like Barbarian pretty much all of their classes are tied to their rage mechanic, and barbarians only get a few rage charges. They can't just rage as much as they want. They have to have a rage charge, or it's a rage currency, whatever you want to call it. And they only regenerate their rage on a long rest. So unfortunately, the barbarian is very, very rest dependent. Its rest dependence is very high. As for the bard, I would say that the bard, because they get Song of Rest, and then if you get enough levels in bard, you also get Font of Inspiration, which recharges all of your bardic inspiration charges. Those two things together, I would say that the bard is low. Its rest dependence is pretty low. You can go very, very far with a bard without taking a long rest. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that you get an extra short rest. As for the cleric, I kind of would divide that up. Clerics that are spellcasting clerics, like Death Domain or Knowledge. Death Domain to a lesser extent, because it's really, Death Domain is focused on your cantrips. Your Toll of the Dead cantrip specifically. I'm sorry, Toll the Dead, not Toll of the Dead. But anyway, Death, Knowledge, Light, Nature, I would say their rest dependence is high. But when it comes to War, Tempest, Light, and Trickery, a lot of what they do really comes from their Channel Divinity charges or class-specific cleric reactions. And short rests will recharge these things. So I would say for those domains, the rest dependence is only moderate. For druids, really only moon druids can get away without taking long rests. I would say their rest dependence is low. They do still want to use their spells, but mainly they like to wild shape, and wild shape charges recharge on short rests. So you can do moon druids without taking long rests. But land, spores, and stars, those want to cast spells all the time. So their rest dependence is very high. Fighters are amazing. Battlemaster, Arcane Archer, Champion, those rest dependence is very low. Champion in particular has no rest dependence at all. Basically everything you do as a champion it is free. It's not resource dependent. Battlemasters have their superiority dice, and arcane archers have their arcane arrows, but those, of course, recharge on a short rest. The Eldritch Knight, on the other hand, that's a more spell-dependent class. Now, there are some things you can do with the Eldritch Knight, like it's particularly adept at throwing builds because of the way that it binds weapons, and the weapons can be thrown and they automatically return to their hand. If you're doing a throwing build with an Eldritch Knight, its rest dependence is going to be very low. But generally speaking, an Eldritch Knight's rest dependence is moderate because you do want to be able to cast spells, and you don't have a lot of spell slots to work with. The Monk key, once again, recharges on short rest. So if you're a Way of the Open Hand or Way of the Drunken Master monk, your rest dependence is very low. If you're a Way of the Shadow monk, you actually do need to take more rests. So I would say it's not very low, maybe just low. And then the Way of the Four Elements monk, moderate, I would say. It's kind of a weird spellcasting monk. I've tried the Way of the Four Elements several times. I've never been able to get anything useful out of it. Probably my failing, but that class is a little odd. Paladins, I don't know what to say about paladins other than that all they want to do is smite, really. And Smite uses spell slots, and spell slots only recharge on long rests, so Paladins have a high rest dependence. Rangers, there's some give and take depending on the subclass. Some subclasses want to use spells more than others, but in general, I would say all of them really can get away without taking rests. You could do the whole game with a ranger without taking any long rests. You might notice missing out on some things, but overall, it's going to be fine. So I would say very low for every subclass. Rogues, they don't have spell casting, generally speaking. So if you're an assassin or a swashbuckler or a thief, you have no rest dependence at all. Rests mean nothing to you. If you're an arcane trickster, then you've got spells. So you're moderately dependent on taking rests at that point. So maybe a little less versatile in exchange for being more versatile in ways. I will say for both the sorcerer and the wizard, they are spellcasting classes. They need their spell slots. They need to constantly take long rests. They are of a very high rest dependence. Warlocks, I would say for the Archfey, the Fiend, and the Great Old One, you get your spell slots back on a short rest, so I would say their rest dependence is low. And then for the Hexblade, I don't even know why. What are you using your spell slots for with a Hexblade? Probably casting Armor of Agathis, maybe Hex. Probably not, but maybe. So I'd say very low for a Hexblade. And I think, one caveat, I guess, for the Wizard. I would say the Wizard is not just simply very high, because it does have the Bladesinger. And the Bladesinger maybe a little more versatile, so I would say only moderate for the Bladesinger.